Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Lower Makefield Township Airport Review Panel. And we will have our 1 hour slot or less for going over what progress has been made and what activities are going on.
Okay, well,
First, I'll go through the minutes from last meeting, which Brendan was kind enough to provide.
we'll have our 1 hour slot or less for going over what progress has been made and what activities are going on.
Wow, there's
Hey, Kirk, I
delay
think
in
someone
the
has a live mic.
It's me. I'm going to turn it off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was,
I turned it off. Okay, go ahead.
sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, wait a minute, that's me. So, okay, so we started off last meeting talking about the letters that we had sent out about the environmental impacts and the FAA refusing to not acknowledge any of the concerns. So Joe talked some about the financial investigation he's doing and the people he's contacting to try to sort of come up with an income loss table to put some quantitative numbers to what's going on with their budget. He's still, well, we'll just do the minutes first, then I'll tell you what he's up to now. We talked about the miter company and trying to find a way for the FAA to do a capacity analysis of some sort and not specifying miter specifically, but just saying that we think that kind of analysis should be done for TTN. We spent some time on the PFAS issues at TTN and their expansion and would it release the chemicals into the environment. We had some discussion about the education still going on with the TTS, Trenton Threatened Skies group and what they're reaching out, how they're reaching out to people. Their social media presence is increasing. And we talked some more about the efforts to get Casey Fitzpatrick and Toomey on board. So that's sort of a summary of the discussions from before. Those are the minutes from last meeting. Panel, can we get a motion to accept the minutes? Thank you. Second. Anybody unmuted so we can second it? Can I second it?
Yeah, you can second it.
I second. Okay, meetings are accepted. Or the minutes are
We
accepted.
do have to
So,
make sure Brendan, the legal
Yeah, I
three of
lost-
us have to do it. So as soon as
Okay.
Brendan comes back,
Okay, Brendan's out. I got it. Okay. All
Back.
right. Well, he wrote the minutes, so I think he'll
well,
accept them.
there he is. Brendan,
I'm back.
we need you to accept the minutes.
Accepted,
Thank you.
Wahoo.
seconded, accepted. Sorry.
So we have a quorum accepting.
All right. Very good. And thanks again, Brendan, for writing that up.
Oh, you're welcome.
So in kind of a whirlwind tour of what's been going on, I had sent out the letter that Fitzpatrick sent to the FAA. And in this letter, well, we had sent the points that we had talking points that we had circulated amongst ourselves and agreed to. And so I sent those out and Fitzpatrick's office modified that some. They put in some comments that I thought were a little confusing just regarding the number of terminals and that sort of thing. I don't know where those inputs came from, but it was of their doing. But I thought he took a little bit more impatient tone with the FAA saying, you need to take these things seriously. The projects are growing in scope, et cetera. So I have not heard anything back from him sending that letter, but they took it on, they did it, they got it out. And so more power to him. Brian Fitzpatrick is still really trying to help our cause there. The letter I sent to Toomey's office had decided to make an inquiry to the FAA and not sign on to a letter. So I finally heard back from, well, anticipating what they would hear when they talked to the FAA, I sent my letter to Kate from Toomey's office with all the points kind of countering the FAA's points. And I said, you know, they ought to be aware of these points because they're going to hear safety. They're going to hear no, you know, it's not a growth project. They're going to hear there's no segmentation. I said, they need to go in with these points so they can say, well, wait a minute, what about such and so? So, that letter was sent to them. I have not heard, I've asked Kate if we could get a summary of what the inquiry was like and what their comments were. So she said they have engaged the FAA, and I said, can you tell us what that means and, you know, what came out of that? Supervisor Lewis authored his own letter and sent it to the FAA, or maybe DOT, I forget now, but the FAA came back with a rebuttal letter to him, which I think I've passed out to everybody. And it was the usual song and dance of all the things. And it, I got kind of irked by it. So I wrote a letter as a citizen, not something that I asked the panel to, you know, sign up to. But I just said, look, I used some of Rob's comments that if 2015, they had 24 trees and they said, well, that's something that's penetrating this runway protection zone, but they did nothing about it since 2015. And now we're supposed to believe there's 20 acres of trees that have to go in the name of safety. And I brought up the growth rate projections and what a farce they were. I brought up the fact that the FAA had said a terminal expansion to 64,000 square feet would be a significant impact of noise for the community. And so how can they now double that and just ignore their previous conclusion that something half that size was going to be a noise impact? So I just, you know, I put all these points in there and expressed dismay that the FAA was treating these issues so cavalierly when they're blatantly obvious these projects are connected. I emailed it to the person who had emailed back to Supervisor Lewis. And then I followed up with an email saying, have you sent that on to this, I think it was Jean Solomon or Joanne Solomon, who had authored the letter. And I have not heard back from that office. So I sent those comments. Those are the comments I sent to Toomey's office, because I said, if you go in and you inquire to the FAA, this is what they're going to tell you. And this is something you can say to at least make a counter argument that's informed. We've heard nothing from Casey's office. John Lewis was, you know, told he would hear from Lara Flynn, who's the sort of the Bucks County rep that we haven't heard from for a year. I've pinged her on and off for, honestly, it's been a year and not a word back. And so when I saw she was the point of contact that John's friend who was in Casey's office staff said, oh, well, you're going to be talking to Lara Flynn. So I said, oh, well, maybe this will actually happen. John hasn't heard anything back. I emailed John's contact and said, what's up with this? We need the help now. We've got Senator Toomey inquiring. We've got Senator Menendez doing stuff. And, you know, we need you to engage now because they're approving projects right and left, including marketing, you know, marketing a company to help or paying a company to help market new airlines to come in. So not heard back from that. John is on a college trip tonight. And so, you know, with the daughter, I think he couldn't make this meeting, but he's trying to get an answer back from Casey's office to see what the heck is going on because they've just been missing in action, which is kind of disappointing. I thought they might have been the ones taking a little more active role here. Joe Menard is attending, probably as we speak, the New Jersey Mercer County Commissioner meeting. They're having a couple night meeting on budget issues of some sort. That was an email that came out from TTS. So I forwarded it to Joe. He's going to listen tonight while he's still working, but he expects to start getting some information out to us in about a week, maybe weekend after this. So he's still engaged. Peter is trying to get a letter to Buttigieg to request an audience from TTS. And I'm not sure if he's trying to bring Menendez's office into that, but Peter is coordinating directly with Robin Karp from TTS on trying to get that letter out. The TTS folks are sending a letter. I don't know if it's gone yet, but they're supposed to be sending a letter to Booker's office to try to get him engaged. And so they've got materials of ours to draw on as well as their own, and are pursuing that. So I think that's all I can think of at the moment, what's going on. So we're just trying to keep them engaged, keep the politicians engaged. That's our current strategy, is how to pursue them and pursue the FAA. And I know, well, the other thing we were going to try to do was to get Congressman Fitzpatrick to send a letter to the New Jersey DEP. They were a little uncomfortable with that. And I said, well, we're not asking you to demand anything, but you could say, can you reflect our concerns as you're, looking at the issues that are being addressed by the permitting things. And so I know TTS has been talking to the DEP, New Jersey DEP, about, is there a practical way to, since the way they operate is just when they're handed a piece of paper saying, here's a project where we're cutting down trees, does this have an effect? That's their only basis to evaluate it. They don't have an ability to say, well, what's the impact on air operations, or will this cause more flights, or how does this connect to anything else? They're sort of handcuffed to analyze it as it's handed to them. It's been raised to the attention of, through TTS, to higher ups at New Jersey DEP, that's a pretty flawed process. And I don't know if they're going to be successful in trying to combine the projects and look at them collectively, or maybe Judy has any more, I don't know if you have any more information about that, but.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so that's a summary of what I know of what's going on, and open up the floor to people to add or expand on any of those topics.
Hey, Rich, the only thing that hits me when I listen to all this, what they're trying to do, to put it into politicians' minds to understand, it seems to me they're building a ghost gun. Where you buy the parts, assemble it, you're getting around the issue. I mean, that seems to be what they're doing. And maybe we refer to it in a way like that, where they would understand, because I don't think they understand all the nuances of what's going on over there. So just a thought.
Okay. Well, maybe we think of a better way to express it to them. Okay.
This is Drew. Brendan, part of what I like about what you just said, and I mean, I could be off base, but I think you're talking about shaming agencies, and I think it needs to be done with politicians as well, into stopping this dance, this disingenuous dance, and taking bold steps to help the Delaware River not get contaminated, quite frankly, with PFAS, which I think is our best angle for approaching these politicians.
Mm-hmm.
I had recommended at the last review panel meeting that Judy connect with Steve regarding the Delaware River Basin Commission, having been involved with the suit with stopping fracking. Judy, did you ever do that?
I have spoken with Steve. I have some other things, but I had spoken to him right the day before you had recommended that. So I have something that I think I want to ask that Steve do, and I'm going to bring it up tonight.
Okay, there are two Bucks County Courier-Times articles where I believe we can use the quotes right out of them to pressure politicians to do the right thing. In a Fed 25 2021 article titled Delaware River Basin Commission Votes to Ban Fracking in the Watershed, it says Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Secretary Patrick McDonald, the alternate for Governor Tom Wolf, voted in favor of the new regulations along with alternates for the governor of Delaware, the governor of New Jersey, and the governor of New York. These are basin states that are voting against fracking because McDonald said Wolf is, quote, proud to join with other Delaware River Basin Commission commissioners in preserving the water resources of this unique region for generations to come. Okay, in another article, March 12th, Bucks County Courier-Times titled, PA Dems join Delaware River fracking fight after GOP reps file suit to overturn ban. Steve is quoted as saying, Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution is known as the Environmental Rights Amendment. Every Pennsylvanian is entitled to clean air, pure water, and the preservation of our natural resources. End quote. Sanacero also pointed to the compact signed between Delaware, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania as an agreement that reflects the desires of taxpayers. The Democrats also say the science is on their side, pointing to an EPA study in southwestern Pennsylvania to investigate reported instances of contaminated drinking water resources. Now, that's in relation to fracking, but we know we have instances in Willow Grove where they're doing a multi-site study of PFAS contamination of water. So I think we need to engage Steve in saying, how do we harness what was done here and pressure Fitzpatrick and the senators at the federal level to get off the dime and start working on behalf of us? The same waters that Steve just had these articles published about are in jeopardy because of the airport construction that's going to disturb PFAS at the Naval Air Warfare Center. And Robin Karff said, I believe, that New Jersey has sued the federal government because of the contamination on that site. So I think we need to start to begin pressure and shame Casey, shame Toomey, where the hell are they? And get Steve to help shame Fitzpatrick. Where are they? Are they going to wait till that body of water is contaminated before they take steps on this issue?
Well, Fitzpatrick is taking steps. He's writing letters. He's doing stuff. I'm not sure what concrete thing, or, he doesn't have the authority to go in and do something unilaterally in New Jersey, but certainly if talking, I think, if the governors of the different states, of the basin states, are in agreement about protecting the watershed, that might be an avenue to push.
And Steve should be the one who can guide us through it.
Can I ask a question? There's 11 people on this call. Can you tell me who they are? Because I can't see the room.
Let's see. Well, there's Brendan, Rob, Joanne, and myself.
Judy, Holly, and Sue.
So there's 8. It's probably some staff from the township might be on the call. Anybody else? Can you identify yourselves?
Yeah, I can confirm 4 of those people are just township staff / production crew staff.
Okay.
That makes sense.
All right.
So there's no other members of the public attending? Is there a delay?
Apparently not.
Okay, I think I have a delay. The reason I ask is I want to understand who all wants to speak, because I want to know how much time, because they're going to cut us off in 35 minutes, and I have a lot I want to cover, addressing some of the things Sue Herman has brought up. So I just want to see how many people want to speak in the next 35 minutes.
Okay. Let's just cycle through. Rob? Do you have any particular?
No, I can just add as required.
I have nothing. I think Judy's the only one, probably, maybe Holly, but
No, I don't have anything, not
Okay,
unless I'm
Judy, go
responding
to
to
it.
something else.
Judy,
All
go
right,
to
so,
it.
all right, so this kind of, segues from what Sue was saying. So, we're obviously, we want them at the airport to stop building until they evaluate and understand their impact on the PFAS. Because we know it's on their land and we know that what they're doing will likely have some effect, whether or not it flushes to the Delaware, we don't know. But we do know what they're doing will certainly affect the existing contamination because of the impervious surfaces that they're changing and the water flow that they're changing. On the advice from an attorney who's familiar with the DEP said that we cannot get an injunction to stop them from building unless we have some kind of proof, some kind of evidence. You're probably familiar with the USGS, which is the United States Geological Survey. It's a group of scientists who have studied the water flow and the contamination at the Air Force Base. And based on that information, that's why New Jersey DEP sued the federal government to try to ask them to clean up the contamination at the naval base. What we're doing is we want the New Jersey DEP to ask the USGS, right, the Geological Survey, to do a very specific study looking at what is the impact of the water changes in water flow and impervious surface for what the airport's doing. And that's free. They don't have to pay the USGS. It's a government service. So we're asking them to do that study. Our thought is, I think it's perfectly acceptable for us to be asking the Pennsylvania politicians to also engage with the USGS, because it has to come from a federal request that they do this study. If the study takes a year or two and there's no injunction to stop the airport, I don't know what that means. But, I think it's at least an avenue we should go down, because when Sue, when you talk about that they had the fracking in the basin, that you referred that they have an EPA study that said that they've shown that there are pollutants. There is no specific study about PFAS other than at the Naval War Center. So this would potentially give us some evidence, and maybe while they're gathering it, we can ask for an injunction to do that study. So I think Steve can, I don't know if he can help us encourage Casey in that. I know Steve is not federal, but he can certainly put his voice into this. I'm just checking my notes. And TTS can provide, the talking points and the information for why they would put this request into USGS. So we just put the request into New Jersey DEP last night, and we've asked them to meet with us again to discuss this, because like Rich said, they're only handed very discrete projects with no interaction between the projects, and so they have no jurisdiction. New Jersey DEP has no jurisdiction to look at the cumulative impact. The other group we're reaching out to is the DRCC, Delaware Raritan Canal Commission. It's a division of the DEP, the New Jersey DEP, and they have some sign-offs on permits for some of the projects, like the RPZ project, and apparently some pretty good jurisdiction, maybe more jurisdiction than even the DEP has on the airport. So we're trying to engage them and ask them to understand our concerns, so that if these permits come through to them, they'll understand the impact of approving these project permits. And also, one of the problems at the airport is that a lot of the projects do not go through New Jersey DEP, because they get Cat X's, or short for MEAs, and approval from the FAA, and so nobody is looking at it from an environmental standpoint in New Jersey. So that's why we're trying to get this cumulative impact, as you guys know, either through the USGS, or again, we're constantly asking for the EIS also. Before I go on, does anybody have some questions or comments about the idea of trying to get the USGS study done?
I do. Is there no way to correlate what we know to have happened in Willow Grove to what potentially could happen here? You had said that there is no EPA study to show, facts regarding the issue at Naval Air War Center, Trenton. Is there no way to correlate what we already know in the multi-site PFAS study? They're also doing it in Jersey at another location than that. Jersey is part of that multi-site PFAS study.
Okay, a couple questions in there. First of all, can you correlate what happened in Willow Grove in their contamination of a direct creek from which the neighbors drew water to what we're trying to say, which is construction next to Superfund site might wash PFAS 2 miles down into the Delaware? So I think in terms of physicality, it's hard to equate the two. So, I mean, and then we're talking about, I don't know. I mean, I could go back and apparently I've heard that the PFAS is showing up in Dublin from maybe the Willow Grove contamination. And I don't have those facts. I just heard that as hearsay. So maybe, yes, Sue, maybe there's some studies that people have talked about this particular spill or contamination is spreading in this way. I don't know if it's going through the rock or how it's getting there. So yes, if we can correlate that, yeah, that, you know, we're trying to figure out how many places across the country are people developing the land adjacent to a Superfund site. And maybe it's happening all across the country, because we feel like if this was a private company instead of the airport, that they'd probably be having to do a little bit more regulatory oversight to see what they were doing to affect the contamination. And the there's only 7 or 8 groups across the whole country that are in that multi-site study for PFAS. So they're looking at the health effects, and I don't think they're going to add in the people viewing at this point. Although if they would have, I think they would have added them, unless that's another idea. If we go try to contact the people running that study and say, why are you not looking at the people viewing who for several years had PFAS in their wells? They don't anymore. But so those are 2 potential avenues to get more information for us to use.
Judy, the other thing is there is a group called the Bucksmont Coalition for Safe Water. I believe that's a grassroots advocacy group, which is key in the Willow Grove.
I've read all their stuff. I've read about them. They were the women who started the whole thing in the years ago. What could they contribute to us if they're studying how far it's spreading?
No, here's the thing. Fitzpatrick is integrally involved with that. So shame on Fitzpatrick that he's taking such a back seat on the airport issue, that he would be reluctant to make our complaint to the New Jersey DEP. Come on, he knows what's happening health-wise in Willow Grove. We need to pressure him to do a better job. He's not doing as good a job as he could if he felt like there were votes at stake. So again, it comes down to grassroots pressure on these guys. Fitzpatrick is very familiar with Willow Grove. And
I don't know if you need to be providing data or evidence to make them concerned. I mean, just saying we think there's a problem over there, isn't necessarily going to put him in position to speak up. I mean, I guess he can address concern that says, we suck our water from the Delaware in Yardley, and Steve can address the same concerns, and every politician on this side can say, there's enough of a problem that they're suing the government. I mean, the DEP is suing the government. Okay, Pennsylvania. So yes, if we have a way, I mean, maybe providing data of why we're concerned, just like the data we are providing to the DEP as to why we're concerned.
But the data I think the politicians need to know is the people are going to get mobilized. The people who vote for you are not going to stand for the reticence to fight for us. In this newspaper article, again, the Fed 25 one, it says, now this is a quote from Penn Environment. I don't know if that's an advocacy group that can help, but it says, quote, "This is a watershed moment for protecting one of America's most iconic watersheds. Fracking shouldn't be allowed anywhere, much less near an iconic natural waterway like the Delaware River, which provides drinking water for so many, said David Mercer, Executive Director of the Environmental Advocacy Group Penn Environment. So, and he goes on to say, by banning this toxic practice in such a vital and beloved watershed, regional leaders are taking strong action to protect millions of people. Steve's quoted as saying 13 million people get their water.
Okay, Sue, I've read all those. You know, there's a big difference between fracking up the Delaware and this PFAS contamination. I mean, so I just think I think we're trying to equate the two things. So it's great that these people are caring about the Delaware. Obviously, it's great that they're studying it, but I don't see how, I mean, unless we're already writing letters to, every politician that we can think of. I mean, particularly, and that is, talking about what Rich said, I'll follow up on that, telling them of our concerns. So, and these are the people who are concerned. So what are you suggesting we do that we haven't done?
I think there have to be hundreds or thousands of emails like Graham has done templates of, going to these same politicians to get them off the dime. Because that's what makes them act the most.
All right, so let me go back. Let me continue to follow up on what we're doing to try to get that to happen.
Let me just interrupt for 1 minute. There's seven people on this call. Where are we going to get thousands of people sending letters? There's 7 people on this call.
Well, I'm going to defer to Holly on that. They've done letter writing campaigns. Holly, how do you do it?
I'm not in total agreement that we should expend energy any more than we already have regarding this particular issue in relation to the airport. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying it doesn't make a difference. I'm being realistic about the resources that reside on both sides of the river and the ability to grasp a connection between PFAS, airport expansion, and how that's going to impact my life. Now, I'm not saying, and it probably sounds like I'm naysaying, I'm not. I'm trying to look at this realistically, and to make that link in a politician's mind with everything else going on is really grasping at straws. Unless we have an advocate or an advocate group that's willing to incorporate, excuse me, what we're doing and say, oh yeah, you got a problem. You know what? We should link that to the efforts that we're doing. I think we're really starting to stretch even further. And I'm sorry that sounds negative. I don't mean it to. I'm just saying, how much can we do as two organizations where our main focus is the airport and expansion and being responsible, and then getting our foot into yet another huge, major political quagmire that goes trying to link Willow Grove and other PFAS studies to the airport. That's my only point. So I'm not willing to try to educate Graham members on this. If someone else wants to take it on, we can certainly help get communication out, but I think this is going far astray.
And Judy, you have a lot more to cover? I mean,
I wanted to
I do. I do. Like and it kind of segues right into this. Okay, in terms of how are we continuing to educate the public about the risks to home health and happiness? Because I know that's part of your mission, and that's part of TDS's mission, to educate the public about the impacts of the airport. So there were 2 articles published using the lawsuit from New Jersey against the government for the Superfund site as a hook. but also discussing the other issues of financial impacts of the airport and overall lack of environmental oversight. So you probably all saw them. One was in a website called Mercer and Me, and the other was in the Bucks County Herald. There is a meeting with the Courier Times on Monday on another subject, but this is going to be brought up because they've expressed some interest. There was, probably 150 outlets, media outlets have been contacted trying to get them to pick up this press release. So, I don't know if that's good or bad that we got the ones we got. We got some. So we're trying to piggyback on that. I think of the outside news media as the pull, and the push is the social media. So they're working on a coordinated social media campaign. So that, we were hoping, I don't know if that'll come out the next week. That was part of the plan. Whether come out means, I guess, however you push through social media, which might include each of your social media lists if you're willing to pass it on. I think we can contact and educate our political leaders about the risk without having to, and I agree with Holly, what Holly's saying. It's hard to stretch this in people's minds. But I do think in a small enough group like the politicians, you can educate them as the potential risk and why they should be concerned. And at the same time, they may start to hear from more people just generally because of a social media campaign that's going to touch on everything. It's going to touch on possibly the PFAS, but mostly, all the things, home values, health, student learning, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be a whole series of different issues that come out as to why the airport, it's got a Trojan horse, right? That's the theme. What's hiding inside this Trojan horse? I'm trying to check my notes here. So it's a little, somewhat, I don't know the word's discouraging, but like you start to get articles published, but what happens with that? I guess part of the article said go to the TTS website, and, we probably got 10 additional, there's probably 100 or 200 hits with about 10 people signing on. So because the news people, this is a complicated issue. They have trouble getting their teeth into it. So they want newsworthy items. You mentioned the coalition. We're considering trying to have coalition with environmental groups. At least that could be newsworthy to say they have signed on, they've agreed. I'll be certainly willing to hear if anybody has any contacts. We've reached out to them a lot over the last year. So I don't know if the PFAS will make them join on or other things. Also, we've talked about resolutions to try to put forward to like Brian Hughes or the Mercer County Commissioners. I think that's a tough one because they'd have to be voting against what they want to do. And then you come back to the age-old protest in front of the airport that, you only need a small group to maybe look like it's a problem. So I have in the past rejected that. I know so many people when they first get involved, they say, let's take some signs over and protest. And I'm thinking, what, in front of the thousands of people that want the airport that are flying? But I'm kind of coming back to these things are newsworthy and starts to make people start to ask, well, what's really going on here and how's it going to hurt me? Okay. Any questions about that?
No, are you still using the media guy to formulate messages and that kind of thing, or?
Yes, we are, and we're working with him. We're doing the legwork of it, some of it. Yes, we are using them. He has a lot of contacts within the industry, and he'll be the one meeting with the Courier Times.
Okay.
Wow, great.
All right, I have something totally different. So if you have any other questions about, I hear you say the PFAS issue, and I agree. The thing is, right now, in terms of trying to truly shut them down, I don't know any other way to really try to stop the projects that are not going through the DEP. You can kind of work on the DEP not to give permits, but when half the projects, like all the parallel taxiways, most of them will never go through the DEP.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I've got a quick question, Judy, regarding the spokesperson, the consultant that's they're meeting with the Courier Times.
They have a different meeting for the Courier Times, not for the airport, but it's going to come up because she has an interest.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out how that's going to, they're not an authority spokesperson.
You'd be surprised how much time they've spent learning it. And we have, a whole list of data, like from that.
No, I understand that, but has TTS given the public relations or media consultant some sort of connection that would add credibility for them to be talking on the to represent TTS for public statements?
That is a good question. And I think what the media person would do, my understanding, is that he won't try to give direct quotes, but he will encourage her to connect with those who have the information. Yeah. He has enough talking points and enough basic knowledge. In fact, I'll ask her if he wants to hand her a fact sheet, of concerns. I don't know if he goes in with that. I haven't, this just kind of came up, so I haven't spoken to him directly about it, but I'm sure he'll, but it is that, if he directs them to the people who maybe know more, would you see that as the right path?
Yeah, and making it clear that what he's saying is is unofficial, because you're getting into dangerous territory by having someone say something that could be representing a group that he's consulting for and not the group itself. I like the idea of if he or she go in to the meeting, I'm assuming it's him, with a small one pager and says, "Oh, here, this summarizes what we're talking about, and if you want more information, there's your contact." Because I don't, I'm just working with them. I'm not a member of the group.
That's a very good question and a very good comment. We had always intended to have that. I don't know if he has one. I'll find out, and we would have time to get that to him.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, because this, I don't know if you happened to.
I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No, but it's good because I'm kind of done with all that. I don't know if you happened to see the article because it happened right off the bat. There were two mistakes in there, unfortunately, and one said that Mercer County had footed the bill for the lawsuit, and that was completely wrong. And then the other was that they had already taken the bonds out for the terminal, and that was wrong too. So that was kind of really unfortunate, and that's been corrected. And it gave them another reason to reach out to them with the correction.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, did you see that? Anybody who read that article, did you see that as a problem that was misstated, or Joanne said it kind of didn't jump out at her. Did it jump out to you guys? Not really. Okay, good. We just didn't want to give, Mercer County a hook to discount something we said right away. Okay, this is kind of like a working group question a little bit, and I'm sure you've all thought about this at one point. So we always use asking for EIS as the rallying point when we want, people to sign petitions. And we all know that the EIS may not give us what we want. But there's certainly never been an EA there's not going to be an EA or an EIS for the entire project. It's only going to be, individual EAs. And we believe that Mercer County would have to pay for the EIS because we think they pay for all the EAs. I guess I would really like to finally get an answer as to what is really the difference between an EIS and an EA, because they'll always keep saying you don't need an EIS, you don't need it, and there's no airport across the country that's ever had EIS versus an EA.
Incorrect.
Who has it?
I mean, the EA is the brushstroke. That's the first step. And it looks at things on a broad stroke level. And then the EIS goes into the detail and the showing of the interdependence of the projects and the effect on the environment as an overall thing. But you can't go to the EIS until you've had, well, it used to be this way. Now this may have changed. You can't go to the EIS without going to an EA first. And Trenton has done an EA. They've stated that. I've never seen the newest EA, but they said they have done it, I think, for the tree thing, I think. I'm trying to, I
For the
read
what
it
thing?
somewhere, but I've never seen a copy of it.
Well, I'm sorry, what did you say the EA was for?
The EA is like the broad stroke. You know, here's
No,
a
I know what the
project.
what did you say you thought Trenton had done an EA for?
I thought I had read that Trenton had done an EA for the, before they cut down the, for the,
Okay, yeah, sure, that is the only EA they've
Protection
done. They've done the EA for the RPZ, that's what the suit was about.
correct.
Right.
But there's virtually no other EAs. There's going to be an EA for the terminal,
That's
which,
correct.
but there's not even going to be an EA for the new control tower. It's a CAT-X. It's already been approved.
Right.
All the CAT-X's for the parallel taxiways were approved in 2017 and 2014. There may be some other projects that need, even the flight serve, on the contaminated property was a short form EA.
That's correct.
So there is certainly no overall, I would hope that the EIS would be for the entire master plan, which, they probably wouldn't do because they'll say, well, that could be a 20-year implementation period, but I think an EIS can cover the imminent projects that they're doing.
The EIS should cover all. And it's not correct saying the airport pays for it. That's not true.
Who do you think? So this is kind of why I said a working session, because I thought maybe Dan Grenier can help. I don't know who's got the answers to these. Who do you think pays for an EIS?
If I'm not mistaken, it's the FAA, but I could go back in our files and talk to, I think Rich would know that because he remembers that stuff.
I thought it was the FAA that paid
I think
for
it's
it.
the FAA. Trenton, New Jersey doesn't put a dime into it because it's the FAA documentation of letters response to Fitzpatrick saying, we're not going to do that, nor are we going to pay for it, which acknowledges that indeed, if they agreed to do it, the FAA would have to pay for it.
Okay. Also, I'm not sure that you can't have another federal agency like the EPA do an EIS. I'm not sure it has to be just the FAA.
Judy, I just want to add that if RRTS has asked for Mercer County and Bucks County politicians to cooperate and work together to have the counties jointly cover the cost of an EIS, a voluntary EIS, if the FAA wasn't willing to grant that. So that's a tax. I don't know if you see value in it, but it's something to consider. And do we know the cost of the EIS? For some reason, I remember Lucy Walters saying it was $400,000, but don't quote me on it because I'm not sure I'm right. And I'm not positive that that number is accurate if I'm right that that's what she said. But perhaps asking the counties to do a voluntary EIS jointly is a way that we could go.
Well, the
I'm curious, you got me
500,000
thinking,
million.
Judy, whether the EPA could get involved. That's really a good question. Now that we have an EPA again.
Right.
I don't know the answer, but
Well,
yeah, I
Judy,
still
it just-
contend if they weren't afraid, they would just say, yes, let's get an EIS, and that would shut everybody up.
Right. So just because we're going to be turned off here in just a couple of minutes, Judy, is there something you want to, other than discussing with a group, is there something you want to pursue or ask to say, can we help coordinate a request or do something to try to push this?
I guess I would like a little bit more firmness in my understanding of the EA and the EIS, and like, I'm thinking somebody like Dan, can he weigh in to say who can do it, and would you ever be able to get it? Because like I said, as far as we know, the answer that the FAA has never done an EIS.
Okay.
But
Judy,
maybe
are you saying they've never done an EIS anywhere in the country or just never at?
that is our understanding, that never in the country. The question asked at one of these FAA meetings is, have you ever done gone from an EA to an EIS? And the answer was no.
Wow.
I
find that hard
that
to
seems
believe.
very weird. Yeah, that seems, but I don't have any knowledge, but
Well, then who has done them? Has
Could
the
we go
EPA
back to one of those airport overall, one of those large groups that we've been getting involved in and ask on that site? And say,
I think that, I can't remember where it came from, but I'm pretty sure, yes, we can. You're talking probably about Sky Network. I'll check my notes and figure out, I didn't hear it. I heard it, from, I think somebody at TTS heard it said.
And I'll look back at our notes and see what I can find and let you know, Judy.
Well, Judy, I will ask Dan and I'll CC John Lewis on it, but ask him, about his understanding of who pays for it and who can issue it, and could we go to the EPA to ask for it?
Right.
That
And
would
a
be
little bit
helpful,
more,
Rich.
because
What's that?
that they constantly will say, in fact, I think it's even in the urban engineer's notes, that you won't get anything more from an EIS than an EA, which, I just don't understand. Obviously that doesn't make sense, but I don't quite understand. So I'm just, maybe if we had a better ability to explain what the EIS would give us over the EA, that would also help maybe when we're trying to get politicians and other people to push for it, to a fuller understanding of why it's so important. I mean, one is that there's no overview. It's all individual projects.
Well, the
And I
thing
assume the EIS would be the whole thing.
Well, the other thing is these environmental assessments are only for the activities that they're doing to build that tower or cut down those trees. None of it
Right.
has to do with the impact of the operations resulting
Right.
from those projects.
Right.
And I think
And I don't know if the EIS does either, Rich. I don't know if, again, that's another unknown. I just haven't looked that much into those things.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. They're going to bump us. So we can end in a controlled way. And not
Right.
just
Sorry
have
to
it
take
cut off.
over it, but I wanted to
No,
share. And then please get back to me if
it's
anybody
great.
has any thoughts.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Our next meeting will be on a Wednesday. I'll send out the dates. We're going to get 7:30 slots for a couple of Wednesdays, but the Thursdays were not open. So I'll send out an email with what those dates are. They're roughly in a month and two.
That would be great, Rich, just so that we can coordinate, let people know.
Yep, you got it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your work.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job.
You too.
All
Thanks.
right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.